Clay Matthews, Super Bowl champion Packers linebacker in the herd on ESPN Radio. So they're opening the season this weekend at the Niners. Do you guys, Clay, care about what happened last year, or to you is it a new season, new game, you don't care?
Well, it's absolutely a new season, and we're looking forward to kind of putting the past behind us. Obviously, they got the best of us last year in the playoffs, and that ultimately ended our season. And it provides a little extra motivation. Yet at the same time, we're just fortunate enough that we get to come back out here and play again, and hopefully put a win in our column. So we're most excited about that.
Clay, I'm watching all this college football and the spread offense, and you can see it bleeding to the NFL, and you guys face Colin Kaepernick and RG3 in your first 2 weeks. Does it force you guys to play a zone probably more than you actually want to play a zone?
We're a fire zone defense as far as, how we get after the quarterback. So, there'll definitely be wrinkles, but I think as far as last year, when you look at how we played, the pistol and the read option, there'll be a few new wrinkles to our defense as far as how we want to approach it. I think for the most part, it's just us being a little more aggressive this year and making them decide if the quarterback's going to keep the ball or if the running back's going to take it. So I think that's what our biggest change this year is going to be, is being the aggressor rather than sitting back and waiting for them to dictate where the ball goes.
Packer linebacker Clay Matthews, Super Bowl champ. The other thing I see that's bleeding over to the NFL is the no-huddle offense. Belichick takes a lot of that last year from Oregon. And I sit there and I watch the no-huddle offense, and I think to myself, I would be gassed if I'm a linebacker or a defensive lineman. Take me through what it's like, and you're going to see more of this, of the no-huddle stuff. What is your feeling about that, which is transforming football?
Well, I think it's it's a great tactic to get the defense on their heels, and it's no different than what, Aaron and our offense run out here in Green Bay. So, the greatest thing is when you can shut them down quickly, but for the most part, what they try and do is, keep you on your heels with their formations and personnel in which they bring in, and, if they're able to pick up a first down, they get you gassed on defense, too. So, it's definitely tiring. It just puts a lot of stress on the defense as far as their substitutions, getting in the right personnel and stopping them. And, from seeing guys like Drew Brees, who is a constant no-huddle, push the ball, push the limits, it's difficult. But, you really got to focus and get that 3 and out or get off the field and kind of put a rest to that.
Clay, do you do now more cardio? Will you play lighter than you would have previously? Has it changed the way you train because of the no-huddle and the spread offenses?
Personally, I've always trained the same way, but I make sure to put extra emphasis on staying in shape cardio-wise during the season. So if that requires me to, do a little bit more running when I might back off during the play, I'm all about that. But, when you're taking 60, 70 reps each Sunday, you're in pretty great shape. But at the same time, everybody needs to take a blow once in a while and maybe take a play or two off just to, regain yourself.
Clay, you're kind of a thinking guy's football player, and we got into this discussion where Nick Saban says all this no-huddle stuff is dangerous because it's more plays, and I go the other way, Clay. I say if Clay Matthews is on the field for 12 and 13 plays, he is so exhausted that he's not going to have the velocity to level a guy. That what's happening, defensive players, you just want to get guys down, and arguably, even though there's more plays, Clay, you don't have the same level of violence because players are more tired. You tell me, if you played 12 more plays a game, are you going to have more or less injuries?
I'll tell you what, Colin, I played 99 plays last year in one game against the Indianapolis Colts. So, and I was still getting after the quarterback right around 80 or 90. So, I feel as if you play with the same tenacity, yet at the same time, I think it's the drive that might take you out of, being in top shape. But that just really puts an emphasis on being in shape and having a great rotation. You see a lot of that with, the defensive line, obviously defensive backs and linebackers. You definitely have to be out there each and every play. But as far as a pass rusher, you need guys who are fresh out there, guys who can get after the quarterback. Because if you let them move down the field and they have a 12 or 13 play drive, that's when defenses become tired, and that's when offenses can capitalize.
Yeah, like you said earlier, you got to get these spread offenses, these no-huddle guys off the field, or it can take defensive linemen out of a game. With Green Bay, to me, it's the most beloved franchise. When you were at USC, they're kind of loved and hated. Green Bay is kind of beloved. They're the Cubs of the National Football League. So anytime there's any dissension around the team, I find it odd. I was surprised that guys took shots at Aaron Rodgers. Were you?
Well, you know what? I guess I was surprised, yet at the same time, you know, that's kind of how the business works. Obviously, when things don't end on agreeable terms, whether that's, you know, a contract or an extension or whatever it may be, I think it's easy to take shots at, you know, a former team or former players and just, you know, maybe vindicating yourself. I don't know if that's the correct way to put it, but nonetheless, I mean, it seems to be a theme, and it's not just, you know, in this sport, not just with our team or this example, yet at the same time, you know, Aaron's you know, he's a fantastic leader. He's going to take it to where we want to go, and you know, hopefully that's another Super Bowl. But for the most part, you know, I think we know what he brings to not only the playing field, but to the meeting room and being a mentor and leader.
Well, I mean, listen, he's always played with a kind of a cool chip on his shoulder, maybe because he didn't get all the great scholarship offers. He had to go the junior college route, Clay. You know, is it possible that he's got a little chip on his shoulder, and for some guys, they just can't come around to it, that he is a little edgier than most quarterbacks?
Well, I will say that definitely, you know, helps with his, you know, play on the field, is the fact that he's had to fight and scratch for everything that he has. And now that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, I don't think he ever wants to relinquish that role as far as being the number one guy. So in that regard, that's what you look for as a team leader and as a quarterback. You know, you want somebody who's going to get after week in and week out and doesn't become complacent. And that's what you see with these guys around the league, these other fantastic quarterbacks, the, you know, Mannings and Tom Brady. So, you know, these guys who always want to improve upon themselves and are very hard on themselves, as well as the guys around them. You know, they hold people accountable. That's what leaders do.
Well, you got Kaepernick and RG3 in your first 2 weeks. I strongly suggest you get on the treadmill over the next 2 to 3 weeks, Clay. We love watching you play.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Colin.
Clay Matthews.